I want to explore this topic with you. You talked about how you think that it's possible free AI might be a thing of the past. Can you tell me more about this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on right now that everyone that's using AI should be acutely aware of. And the biggest signal, I think, for people who are in the Microsoft 365 space is that if we think back to the end of last year, last fall, there were some big announcements about bringing more AI to everyone. Whether you had a Copilot license or you didn't have a Copilot license, essentially you were getting stuff. You were getting
Hmm.
Copilot chat in apps. You were getting some agentic features, etc., etc. And last month, there was a big step back from this by Microsoft when they announced that in organizations of 2,000 or more seats, Copilot chat in the apps like Word or Excel for users that don't have that full Microsoft 365 Copilot license would start to disappear. And I think the date that was given, first of all, was the 15th of April. That's now been pushed back to May. We are yet to see whether it actually happens, but as it stands, that's what we're expecting to happen. So there's a large group of users potentially who have been getting used to the idea of using Copilot in their apps where it might disappear. But that's not the only place. There's been a lot of these kinds of things going on recently. So over on the GitHub side of things, another company owned by Microsoft, it's very difficult right now to even get yourself a GitHub seat. If there's certain tiers that you're trying to get into, they won't even sell it to you because people who are using it are using so much capacity that it's not worth their while to sell you some of those lower tiers. And jumping on the bandwagon, just recently, we saw that there was a very quick and then reverted change to the terms for Claude Pro, which is their $20 a month tier, where they were going to get rid of Claude Code, one of the most popular features of Claude from that. And that's now been reverted, and I think they said it was a mistake. But I just think there's lots of indicators going on there right now that kind of say that this idea of free AI or even all you can eat AI is becoming a big problem for these companies. And if all you can eat AI and connected to that free AI starts to disappear from the places that we've come to know it and maybe like it. Maybe some people love it, maybe some people hate it, but it's been there. What does that actually mean for the economics of these products and for doing business in the places where we've adopted it?
Yeah, I think that this is probably a misstep, like a big misstep by these companies to think that they could fall in line with what a lot of other companies do. And a big example of this, obvious, is Google. Like Google provides these massive, in-depth, extremely useful tools for free. Google Maps is a perfect example. Google Maps is a great tool that's been getting better and better over the years. Why would they not charge for that? What a they could easily charge for that. Let me say that. What an
Hmm.
excellent tool. Then you have when they introduced search to the world, like this search was better than any other search, and it was like mind blowing. And it's a free thing. When they introduced Gmail, I remember when Gmail was like like an invite only thing, but Gmail came along, but then it came along with all of these really powerful, cool features. And it was like, what's happening? They're just dropping all these free features. How are they doing this? You know what I mean? And the free model, I think, was really like pioneered. I might be wrong, but in my eyes, that was
Hmm.
pioneered by
Hmm.
Google. They
Hmm.
they set the tone for that. And so a lot of companies followed that model with their startup. Give it away, give it away, give it away, give it away, and we'll figure out the money on the back end. AI is a different beast
Hmm.
because how are you funding what this thing is really supposed to be doing? You're telling me all of us sitting around every day using chatbots. This involves bigger and better chips from NVIDIA. This involves data centers that need to be built like yesterday and $500 billion investments from the federal government to one company, not to AI, to one company. Like, what is going on there? What is this money dump? What is this excessive money that AI needs that they're not getting to the point where now they're pump faking on like,
Hmm.
making things free and making things not free. What is this model? It's
Yeah.
not working. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
get it.
the economics of it have been called into question a lot, right the way through this process of these tools coming online. I think number one, because at a base level, it's kind of understood that running these services is more costly than running Google search, and perhaps the
Mhm,
opportunity to bring back revenue, the adding on of ads, we have a lot more suspicion about that now than maybe we did back in the early 2000s when Google started to do that. And the other side
mhm,
of things
mhm,
is, as a general kind of rule in society, I think we've become more suspicious of these services that get given away for free or for cheap up front, because we've seen what's happened with the Ubers or the DoorDashes of the world, of like get the market share cheaply and then push the price up. We see it with Netflix. We see it with right the way across the board of these new types of companies. We see this. So I think there are lots of problems here, and the problem isn't that the AI tools themselves don't have efficacy. They most certainly do have efficacy. I'm working with companies every day that are getting a lot of efficacy out of these tools. But it's the
mhm.
problem if you just randomly let everyone point everything at these tools, you don't get back
Yes.
the value that you need to get back to pay for them. If you have a process which is going to cost you $100 in staffing to get done, and you can get that done for $25 in AI tokens, then that's really valuable to you. You can scale more by doing that. Maybe you don't need to bring in as many people you're trying to hire. It's difficult to hire. You don't have to train as many people. Maybe your workforce changes over time with this kind of agentic future that we're moving towards. But if it's just a matter of people are doing what they would have done anyway, but they're pumping it through AI before they ever press send on that email, or before they ever print
Mhm.
that document, or before they send the template, which is perfectly good and has been sent out 100 times to clients and generated a lot of business, but now we pass it over to Claude before we ever press send on it, then what are we actually building out of it? And we're just
Right, right.
costing a huge amount of money to get done essentially what we were doing before.
Yeah, that's a very big deal because I'm like, okay, are you a Power Query user? Do you use Power Query?
Okay, if I have to, I mean, if I want to give myself a restless night, then I will plan to use Power Query the next day.
I tell you what, Power Query is one of my favorite tools. I love it. I call it the washing machine for data, right? And there's a
I
feature
call
in
it masochism, but each to their own.
there's a feature inside of there that's been out for years where you want to create a new column, right? Like
Mhm.
you want to get in there and create a new column. So you might do something like you'll tell Power Query, look at this column and look at this column. And then you'll put the data inside of the new column and then you in just that one row. And then you'll say, based on the data that I've
Mhm.
put in this new column, guess the rest of the rows. So if there's a 4 in one column and a 4 in another column, and I put an 8, if I manually enter an 8 in this third column, the rest of the columns should guess, oh, you want to do that column plus that column equals, you want to sum the data in this column. That's AI at work. And it looks at what you do and then it says, okay, because it might not get it on the first try. You got to put in a couple more data points, and then it says, okay, got it. I've now looked at your data points. I think I understand what you're trying to do. That is a excellent use of AI that I don't have to touch. I don't have to do anything. It's already built inside of the tool. And to me, that's an excellent way to deploy AI, where now, to your
Mhm.
point about everybody pointing it to everything, AI probably shouldn't have become a end user's tool. This AI that
Exactly.
we have today,
Well,
what is the point of
let,
everybody
let,
having
let,
it?
let me make a point to you, though, that I think supports what you're saying. That particular feature in Power Query, where it's doing that kind of pattern matching and working out, like, how do you build the output? You're backing it out to the other potential inputs that you've got within your table. That also, so far as I'm aware, isn't dialing out to any external service to do that. That is a feature that sits within that product and is
Right.
utilizing the capacity within, if you're using Power BI desktop, for example. I guess if you're doing it on the web, it probably, well, maybe it does it in the browser, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But
Mhm.
it's certainly not, it's not like generating hundreds of tokens to understand every bit of your data in the same way these models are. Like if you look at, like if you run something like Cowork, like Cowork is fantastic. Like it does some fantastic stuff, but sit and watch what it does. Like it's like, I'm trying to find an email. I've worked out I can't find the email this way, so let me try another way. I'm going to go and I'm going to try it this way. Let me try the Graph API instead. Oh, now I found the email, but I didn't get the whole email. Let me go back and get. And you can understand the logic of it, but think of that if it was a human doing it. Like, I've gone down to the room where we keep all the papers and I forgot to take the key. So I'm going to walk back up to the office and I'm going to find the key. And then, oh
Right.
no, I left the note of what I was trying to find on my desk. So I'm going to come back up again. And by the time I've done that, I've got to lunchtime. So now I need to take my lunch break. And like, our entire work would just fall apart if that was how we worked as humans. But
Right.
we're focusing on the outputs because we don't have to focus on the efficiency of what's going on. We could just leave these AI models to do what they do, and they give us an output, and who cares how they got it? Well, I tell you who cares how they got it. Microsoft does, because they're paying for these GPUs to be working to get the output that we're seeing.
Right. Yeah, and that's a pretty big deal to them. But in addition, I think it should be a big deal to end users as well. That's important. That's like how you iterate and make things better. If you know how it's working, then you can say, "Oh, well, I don't think that's efficient. Let me double back over that and make that a better situation. Like, let me make that work a little bit more faster or whatever." And it's just like I don't see the value beyond chat. I get it. The chat is you can't convince me that that is not like a game changer. When generative chat, when you deal with the chat bots and you ideate, you know what I mean, or you it's a better way to Google, it's a better way to search. Like I get that. You know what I mean? Like that, I can see the value immediately. But then when you start introducing these long bodies of work that you have to put in to come to a result, that's not for everybody. I don't think that's a everybody tool. That's a like a different tier of person. For instance, the person who's responsible for Excel and Power BI and put that feature inside of Power Query. The person who built the technology behind Siri. The person who built the technology behind Alexa. Let them do that and be really good at that and pay them well to do that. But all of us sitting around trying to build agents, like I don't know that that is the best use of my program manager's time. I would rather see a powerful, very useful agent being built and handed over to the program manager or my project managers. But I don't want them sitting there doing that. I'm not grasping how this is
Mm-hmm.
the future
Uh,
necessarily. Like I get agents, I see it, I understand that. Matter of fact, last episode when I had an epiphany, you know what I mean? But again, I just don't think that it's something that like everybody should have access to. And if you do have access to it, then it should operate like Siri or it should operate like
mm, mm,
Alexa.
mm,
I
mm.
mean, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, I think the thing is, like, if you were to ask one of these, voice chat assistants, I won't say the name in case I wake up everyone's devices. You've already done that
Okay.
twice, so
Well,
um,
my
uh,
my I changed the name on mine,
all
so it's
right.
not a
So,
worry for me.
well, that's what works for you. I can't wake yours up, but I think the problem is they're actually not very good. They're actually, I mean, they're fine for what they are, but they're actually not very good. And one of the reasons that they're not very good is they lack specificity about what we're actually trying to do, right? They lack that context. Now, this idea of you have like one all powerful agent is fine. I mean, Copilot is essentially one all-powerful agent. Like Copilot can do a lot of stuff, right? Or maybe a
Mhm.
better example is something like Claude Cowork. Like Claude Cowork can do a lot of stuff. But unless you point it at the right folders, unless you point it at the right context, unless you tell it what you want, it doesn't do anything useful. Now, this building agents, like what we're actually saying is like take your instructions and turn your instructions into a repeatable set of tasks that you want this agent to do in exactly the same way you would if you hired someone. You would say, get on and do it. These are the instructions you're going to follow. So I think that there is value in thinking about what are you going to build. I think the
Mm.
problem that I see is not the focusing on building stuff and is that stuff that's built useful and are the outputs that it creates, do they have utility? The problem is that unlike giving an employee a set of an SOP and sitting down and training them, and then you take them through the process, 5 times over a week, and then the sixth time they come in on the following Monday, and you let them get on and do it, right? And then over time, you kind of trust them more, and you take off the kind of control and the oversight that you've got over them. You loosen that a bit because you know they know what they're doing. Like, I don't see the same path applying to what we're doing with AI a lot of the time, because number one, you're not truly learning. You're iterating based on success or failure, right? So when you see a failure, you try to turn down that failure in the instructions. Where you see something that's particularly successful, you turn up that success in the instructions. I was working with a client this week that's been doing something with Claude. They have a process that they've gone through where they create, I think it's an HTML dashboard they create with Claude based on some client files, and they've been doing this for weeks. And suddenly, Claude created something for them that had a script in it based on the same prompt they've done before. Had a script in it. They dropped it into SharePoint. SharePoint decided it was malware. Because it had a script in it. Anything that has a script in it in SharePoint, if it's an HTML file, it's going to be flagged as malware by Defender because it might be. It's not understanding what it is. It's just pattern matching. So what the question is, well, what happened? And I'm like, well, I don't know. You gave it the same instructions. Maybe you suddenly used Opus 4.7 instead of Opus 4.6. I don't actually know, and I don't think anyone actually knows. So then we go in and we say, okay, we're going to edit the instructions a little bit to say, absolutely, do not put a script in my output. Right, because I want this to live in SharePoint and I don't want to have to turn Defender off. But does it
Mhm.
solve the problem? Like if you were having to do that with employees, that person that you're having to take aside at the end of every day to say, well, you shouldn't have done this and you shouldn't have done that, and actually we'd like you to do this differently. At some point, you're going to say, don't bother coming back on Monday, and you're going to try it with someone
Yeah.
else, right? And we haven't got to the point of, well, what do we do when the rubber hits the road in that way with our AI agents? Because we're still at the point of iterating through these instructions to kind of course correct when something changes.
Yeah, it's you can't get that human level output. Not anytime soon, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not in the rooms where they know something that we don't know. But these big companies are not necessarily firing people to replace them with AI. It doesn't seem that way to me. It seems like they're firing people so that they can have enough money to go pay for data centers. I wish I would have brought this article where I saw they surveyed a bunch of CEOs, I guess, and these CEOs said, it didn't. They've been dealing with AI for 6 months plus or something like that, and it didn't save any time. They don't see the ROI, and I believe them. That's a study. I wish I would have saved the article and read more in depth and found out exactly what was going on because I believe them. There's nothing, just an executive admin. There's nothing like an executive admin who knows how to connect the dots, who is working with you on a daily basis, who understands how you work, understands their strengths, understands how to think 3 steps ahead, make sure
Mm.
that you're good to go. Like there is nothing like that. If you've ever seen it in action, you know what a really good and effective or what a really good executive admin how effective they can be when they're really good. Like, it's unmatched. You can't do that. Now, can that executive admin use AI? Absolutely. Because maybe, and this is a good example for Copilot. All of the stuff is on the calendar. Everything getting pumped into the calendar. A calendar is a pretty big deal for an admin. The admin one day goes to Copilot and says, "Hey, there's a meeting coming up about this rocket fuel that we're looking at, but who did we talk to 3 months ago about some rocket fuel or whatever?" And then it brings it up, and then the admin starts to connect their dots from that point because that's what they're good at. That to me is an effective. I'm not about to tell this admin, "Hey, start building agents." Let it happen. You know what I'm saying? Like my example with Siri and the unnamed one. Like those examples, you know what I'm saying? Somebody built them, somebody's working on them, somebody's making them better. Matter of fact, today's AI, you could probably take it and put it in there and make them way better than they are right now. Because I agree, the unnamed one, not that good. But I'm not an iPhone guy, so I don't have the other one. But this executive admin, if you see this in action, you know how effective it is to have a person doing that role. And I'm just talking about executive admin. You've seen project managers, program managers, CEOs, CIOs, COOs in action that are really good. What AI is replacing that? Give them AI that's already working, that's already built. They can knock it out of the park way more than they're doing now. But trying to turn them into these half developers that are producing whatever they're producing, I don't even know what to call it. I'm not with that. I don't see that being the future. The future should be what we see today, which is someone who's good at software and can build solutions. You've built the thing. Now you sit it in front of me and let me use it and I can make the decision of whether or not this is good. And then if it's not, I go back to what I was doing before, keep it pushing. I'm not trying to join the realms of I'm going to start creating agents, even though that might be the future. But right now, no. I'm not grasping this deep dive into AI for everybody.
I think you're seeing the right problem, but I think you're identifying the wrong cause. Frankly, I think that you know this idea of like you instruct an agent, right? There's some evidence that suggests that a more sophisticated set of soft skills helps you with AI a great deal more than a more sophisticated set of technical skills. I forget who it was who did that research, but there's some degree of like if you've got management experience and you've got that kind of ability to break up your job and to delegate, then you can actually do better with AI than being someone who doesn't have that experience and you just have technical skills. I think the more fundamental problem is this, that for a lot of things, I believe that the AI can now, even at this point, be genuinely more reliable in terms of the quality of output than a human can, like for like. But there is no reason or rationale behind the mistakes that an AI makes. You know, when you pull them up on their errors, there's nothing sitting behind it. It's not that they had a bad day. It's not that they forgot something. It's not, there's nothing human there that we can connect with. And I think our inbuilt way of connecting with people on this kind of shared human experience of we all make mistakes. There are all things driving the stuff that we do that's good, and there's all stuff driving the stuff we do that's less effective or more error prone. And it's probably going to take, no matter how good this technology gets, no matter how many tokens we pump through it, no matter how many tools we give it, it's going to take a generational shift to actually think about AI in a more equal way to the outputs that we get from humans. Just in the same we were talking about, my mum has had access to the internet for 35 years at this point, I think. Like much of her experience as an adult of commerce has been through the internet. And yet when we're talking on the phone and she talks about buying something, she still says she's going to get the catalogue and send off for it. You know, like she hasn't like written on a form in a catalogue and sent off for it in the post in probably 25 or 30 years. But that's
Right.
what she learned, and that's where her mind is anchored. And what
Right.
we learned was computers are supposed to be right all the time, and humans can make errors, but we work with humans to correct their errors, and we just expect computers to be right. And so, this
Right.
idea that we have to work with computers in the way that we work with humans, I just don't think we're anchored in that. And it's going to be our children potentially, or maybe even the babies that are being born today, that are going to be the ones that make this change, in the same way that my mum is never going to say, I'll just go on Amazon and look for that, even though that's probably what she means.
Right. Yeah. 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 I'm with you. I think you're right. It might. I think it's probably gonna be the babies. My guess. Real quick, I was thinking about something before we leave. I was thinking about the way that you interact with a chat bot when you say AI chatbots. If you interact with a human with a human that way, how weird that would be, because the bot never correctly takes responsibility.
Mm,
It'll say like yes, that is the correct way. Not, oh dang, you know what I'm saying? You was right. That was the correct way. Like it'll do some form of that, but not like a human does. It's
mm,
almost like, if I go back to this executive admin, can you imagine talking to an executive admin and through normal human interaction, you kind of feel when the person is gonna say, oh yeah, my apologies, or yeah, let me look into that, or I didn't even think about that. Just
mm.
normal human give and take. If all of that was missing, you would think something was wrong with your admin. You'd be like, yo, what's up with this person? You know what I'm saying? Because that's normal human, or I don't want to use the word normal, whatever a different word is to just describe what we're used to doing as humans as we interact. That's going away. And the more we lean into AI, the more you'll accept that as the norm, as opposed to what we think now is the norm, which is
Mm,
those
mm, mm,
regular things where you just say, "Oh yeah, my bad," or
mm.
"Oh man, that's a great thought. I didn't even think about that. Let me think about that," or "My mistake," or whatever. The chatbot tries to do it, but it doesn't do it like a normal human. It'll just like brush over its incorrections. It's like, yo,
Yeah.
bro,
One parting thought. So I think I think it
what you
was in
got?
the New York Times, but I'm not sure on this. But I remember reading, or maybe I was listening to something where there was a journalist who was talking about how interacting with AI has negatively impacted the way that she interacts with humans, and
Mm,
particularly people in service roles, where her tolerance for "I'm not going to give you the answer you want right now" or something like that is just decreased a great deal. So I think this cuts both ways. That this is having an impact. I think it probably is having an impact on our discourse,
mhm.
and in some ways maybe positive in terms of some expectations, but also negatively as well. So maybe something to think about there the next time you're having a conversation on the phone with a service worker. Just remember that they aren't your chat GPT agent.
Yeah, I don't think I'll have that problem. Maybe that young lady might have that problem. I think I'm good. Listen, Nick, before we get out of here, where can people find you and what you got coming up?
Well, head over to LinkedIn, I guess. Head over to YouTube. Got some interesting stuff going on right now. I've been doing a new series on YouTube called Copilot Conversations. So the first episode was with Abram Jackson. I think I mentioned that, where he talked about connected agents. I had someone from the Copilot Frontier program team called Xaviera, who came and did a demo of Copilot Cowork on the last
Right.
episode. And I'm going to be trying to do these either with people who are prominent in the community or people from Microsoft every so often as new features come up to get a different take on what those features are and how they're valuable to business users.
All right, good deal. Glad to
How
hear
about
that.
you?
Listen, I'm on LinkedIn, but these days, if you really want to see some good stuff and get some help, come check me out on TikTok. I'm getting ready to start a 30-day series, SharePoint for project managers. If you are a project manager and you want to see how SharePoint can help you, and actually see the visuals, because TikTok is video, then come check me out over there. Also on Sunday, I'm having a course I'm holding a class where at 12 p.m. Eastern, if you want to learn how to build an employee handbook that's digital, then come check me out, because this Word document and PDF situation that, you've been using for a long time, I'm willing to guarantee that if I show you the digital handbook in SharePoint, you would prefer that.
Mm.
And speaking of AI, like we've done this whole episode, this is a great way to lay your foundation, because you can then in the future have your knowledge base sitting right there on inside of SharePoint. And whatever AI agents, if you're into that, you want to build, you can build them and have them, use their employee handbook as a knowledge base. So come check me out. I'll put the links in the description.
That's
All right,
brilliant.
well, Nick, good stuff. I will see you back here in another couple weeks.
All right, take care, Therman. Thanks, everyone.